Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blogging Theology Academy. I should have added the word academy to my little thing there, Blogging Theology Academy. Hello, Hasan Spiker. Hasan Spiker is our dean. How are you, sir? Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam, Paul. Very well. Lovely to see you as always.
Good to see you. And so this is very exciting. Today we're going to be talking about our new Level 2 course. So I'll just share the screen and you can see our website, bloggingtheologyacademy.com. So this is BTA's advanced diploma. This is what this live stream is about, to answer your questions, hopefully, and to discuss what the course is about, and this one-time 30% fee reduction as well for fees paid by the 15th of December. So BTA's advanced diploma, the world's first, and it is actually the first one in the world. This is not boasting. This is technically true. The world's first one is boasting, really, but it really is first.
Truthful boasting.
It's truthful boasting. Yes, might still be wrong, but at least it's truthful. The world's first great books course, specifically designed for the needs of contemporary Muslims, and this is a first. There's a beautiful picture there of. I'm not quite sure. You put that. How would you describe that picture, Hasan? The tree of knowledge, presumably.
I describe it as a tree coming out of a book. I'm afraid I don't have any other way of describing it, but it's beautiful.
It reminded me of Genesis, the tree of knowledge and all that. But anyway, that might be me reading too much into it. So this is on the BTA website. People can look at. And we're going to be talking about the advanced diploma in the great books, the Western tradition and Islamic philosophy and theology, level 2. Level 1, of course, is a course that's running at the moment, and this is our coming to the end of our second year now of the course. It's been running 2 years now, obviously, but this is the next level up from that. So how would you describe it, Hasan, this level 2 course?
Well, I think this is a close reading course. This is what distinguishes it from level 1. And what that means is level 1 was basically a survey course. So in the modern university, most courses are survey courses. When you talk about, let's say, the history of art or the history of philosophy, or even when you're focusing in on, let's say, Descartes, it's still going to be a survey course. It's not focusing on parsing the actual text of the meditations. That's very, very rare. And that's much more like the traditional Islamic tradition when it comes to teaching with a group of students, a halaqah, a circle where you're actually completely bound by the text. You're focused on the actual words, the actual arguments, the actual structure of the arguments of the great thinkers. And what that does is it gives an education which is much more geared towards producing the next generation of thinkers, people who actually understand the architecture of arguments and will ultimately go on to be able to provide philosophical arguments for their own views, theological arguments for their own views. Because when you're learning about the thinker in general, it's a little bit like the difference between reading a little summary of whatever philosopher, whether it's Leibniz or Locke or Descartes or Plato, in a kind of general history of philosophy, right? You're going to have a certain level of kind of culture, of thaqafa about that thinker. I can say a few generalizations about Plato or Aristotle, like Aristotle doesn't believe in forms and Plato does, and but you don't really understand the underlying structure of the arguments for and against the forms, for example. Why does Aristotle argue against them? Why does Plato argue for them? And when you have access to the text, when you're actually basing yourself on the text, it's even better than a survey course which does lay out that argument, because again, that argument, the survey course is generally going to it's going to generalize to a certain extent. It's going to also isolate the argument from its larger context. But when you see the argument for, let's say, the tripartite soul in Plato's Book 4 of the Republic, you see its larger context. You see, the other questions that it's coming out of. So it's not just the tripartite soul. Let's introduce the tripartite soul, and not looking at it in the context of Plato's larger thought and the intellectual considerations that it actually emerges out of. So yes, it's not a survey course, it's a close reading course, which means that you're always returning to the text and all of the discussion is always based around the text. And so that's much closer to a traditional Islamic paradigm of education and learning, and indeed to much closer to what was ascendant in the medieval Christian world. So it's a much more rigorous form of study, and that's really why it's level 2.
Yeah, perfect. So let's go through the website. Let's look at some of the course as it is at the moment. This is subject to change, but so the BTA's Advanced Diploma Level 2, the world's first great books course, specifically designed for the needs of contemporary Muslims. Applications are now open. We'll click on that button in a sec, application now, but also beneath that, applications are now open for BTA's 2026-27 Advanced Diploma in the Western Tradition, Islamic Philosophy and Theology. This is level 1. So the end of our second year of the level 1 course is about to come to the end of that in a month or so. So this is looking for next year's level 1 course beginning in April, inshallah. So you can apply for that as well. But we're here today to talk about level 2, the Great Books course. So clicking on apply now, hopefully, yep. Come on, see that? It doesn't work like that. Okay, I'm going to put that up again because this share screen thing is not always very clear on. There we go. Advanced Diploma in the Great Books, the Western Tradition and Islamic Philosophy and Theology. So, as we say that, a unique and rigorous philosophical and theological education. BT Academy's new Advanced Diploma Level 2 program, The Great Books, offers a uniquely integrated path through the great philosophical and theological works of both Islam and the West. It's designed for those who wish to read the great books in the spirit in which they were written, as living works of reason and revelation, studied closely, historically, and in conversation across the civilizations. So the diploma, like level 1, consists of 2 complementary courses taken together over 26 weeks, 2 terms. Hasan's course broadly covers metaphysics and logic, and mine, the Bible, Christianity, and the historical critical method. And together they form a single continuous intellectual arc. Now, weekly seminars are paired with individual tutorials. So all our content is live, it's interactive. We encourage students to participate and ask questions and comment. And there will be 2 what we're calling short reflection pieces are submitted across the 2 terms, culminating in a final essay. So entry is selective. We do interview people who wish to participate. And the program is designed to accommodate those in full-time study or work. So it's not a full-time program. So just looking briefly at Hasan's course. Hasan, do you want to discuss your course and the weeks that we have? We have 10 weeks here. So this is not the whole course, and this is subject to revision. This is give folks an idea of the kinds of content that we will be reading very closely on the course. So would you like to perhaps walk us through that, Hasan?
Absolutely. I mean, what I'd like to do is give a bit of a rationale for level 2 in the larger context of our situation as an ummah, primarily Muslims in the West. Oh, look, a comment from Gurban, a present Advanced Diploma 1 student. But yeah, in the context of our situation as Muslims in the West who are trying to navigate the world that we're living in today, from especially an intellectual and in a broader way a spiritual standpoint, essentially the rationale of reading the great books is to give a kind of ilaj of some of the most pressing challenges that we are facing today as Muslims in the West. And I think the most fundamental of these challenges is simply being extremely uprooted when it comes to our fundamental worldview. A lot of Muslims today are very, very uncertain about their own values because many of their fundamental assumptions, many of their first principles, as it were, are actually kind of half-digested Western principles that come from whatever lineage it happens to be, whether it's the liberal or whether it's a kind of dogmatic positivism or empiricism. And then there's also our being cut off from our Islamic tradition and having a little bit of a problem when it comes to what's called in the metaphysical tradition, in the theological tradition, tasdiq, or assent, in the sense that do we actually believe what we purport to believe? And if so, in what manner do we believe it? What does it mean for us to believe it? Is it blind faith? What is faith, right? And so very often we're kind of victim of this post-Lutheran conception of Iman as, well, not Iman, but Iman as blind faith, which really is very anachronistic and anatopistic. In fact, it was one of my favorite words.
It is. What is that? Please don't tease it.
Anachronistic means, it's in terms of chronos, and it's in the wrong time. It's not in the right time period. But anatopistic means it's out of place, basically. So it's just imposing a foreign framework onto a situation which that it's not suited to in any way. And so, we end up essentially as Muslims today living very inauthentic lives often. And it's fundamentally because of this uncertainty about our worldview, because we're taking little bits of liberalism here, and we're taking little bits of, I believe in the absolute freedom of the individual here, but yeah, I'm a Muslim at the same time, but it's blind faith at the end of the day. You can't really know, and it's just a bit of a disaster, really. So those, obviously, this is not this kind of deep study is not for everyone, but it is designed for those, especially those who are alarmed by the state of the Ummah today and our state, and who have this capacity for deep study and this interest in the intellectual tradition and the broader Western intellectual tradition, to really go back to basics, go back to fundamentals, and move from those fundamentals, getting those fundamentals right, to a really nuanced and detailed study of both intellectual traditions. And what this primarily amounts to, as you're seeing in this course, is the loss of metaphysics. The most fundamental difficulty and problem and challenge that we need to treat is our move from a default metaphysical worldview and outlook to a default empiricist positivist outlook. Now, if you're John Stuart Mill and your empiricism and positivism is not blind following, and you actually know the alternative, and you still choose empiricism, as absurd or as ungrounded or as difficult to defend as it is, as he himself acknowledges, that's one thing, because at least you know the arguments from both sides. But the real danger is when you're taking your metaphysics from, because everyone has a metaphysics. You can't, if you're a human, you've got a metaphysical outlook. If you're a human, you've got a metaphysical outlook. You have views on truth. You have views on the nature of goodness. You have views on the nature of beauty, and these are all non-empirical human fields of investigation, and therefore, on a kind of broad definition of metaphysics, they're metaphysical. So you can't be a human and not have views on these things. But the question is, are you absorbing those views just from the air and from your environment, and then they all come together as in this confused mishmash in your head, and then you start basically mistreating everyone around you on the ethical plane because you're so confused about your values. On the aesthetic plane, you start thinking that ugly things are beautiful because you feel like it. Sidi Hasan looks fresh and younger.
Indeed, you do, actually. I must say this is true. So
Yeah.
wherever you are in the world, Hasan, it's doing you good.
Yeah, well, Medina is known for.
You're in Medina, alhamdulillah.
Yeah, the healing of the inward and the outward. And alhamdulillah. And gosh, I guess I completely forgot what I was talking about.
I'm sorry, I distracted you with this rather cheeky looky comment. Actually, it's very naughty whoever put that up, but it's true. Can I just perhaps draw your gaze to the course itself on this website here, theologyacademy.com.
You're telling me to stop waffling, Paul? That's fine.
So in week one, again, this is a sample course. It's subject to revision and change. It's not the whole course; it's just 10 weeks. But I can see, you discuss excerpts of Plato's Republic, close readings of Aristotle's posterior analytics, metaphysics, and Plotinus. Yeah. It's a real cornucopia of knowledge.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, and this is a return to metaphysics. It's a return to what is the metaphysical tradition? What does it mean to be able to root your aesthetic intuitions, your moral intuitions, your metaphysical intuitions in reality, rather than what the neighbors will think or however you happen to be feeling, which is basically what's in vogue today. So, and is responsible for so many of our social problems and other problems. So the point being, I mean, what I'm trying to get across is that metaphysics is not this ivory tower discipline that is just a kind of way to impress swotty friends of yours. It has very, very significant on the ground implications for the way that you treat others, the way that you behave, for the way that you view beauty, and for your overall worldview. Because what metaphysics does is it roots our experience of the world, our intuitions of the world, our intuitions about what is true in all of the sciences, including the physical sciences, including psychology, including ethics. It roots them in an account of the fundamental nature of being, right? And therefore roots these intuitions and these claims in a more mateen, in a more unshakable, stable. I don't know what's wrong with me tonight. I just can only think in Arabic, but I'm speaking English apparently. In a much more deeply rooted and an unshakable way than would otherwise be possible. And traditional knowledge was a subordinated model of knowledge, which means that all of the sciences were seen to be ultimately rooted in metaphysics and had to be ultimately justified by metaphysics. Whereas today you have this kind of arbitrarism where, like, physics is kind of the highest science, but it doesn't really relate to ethics or anything else. And, psychology is kind of important and interesting, but it has no relationship to the de facto highest science, physics. And so everything's just kind of fragmented all over the place. And then people over-specialize. So, the discourse between people from different specializations becomes impossible, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, in your course.
Thank you. That's great. So now I'm going to look at briefly at my course, provisionally as complementary course, provisionally titled "The Bible, Early Christianity in the HCM." Although I think that needs to be modified slightly. But this part of the diploma, level 2 diploma, explores the theological and textual inheritance that shaped the West's world's idea of itself from the Church Fathers. These are leading Christian theologians and bishops and philosophers, to modernity, modern criticism. So it's a hell of a long period of time, nearly 2,000 years. It enables students to engage the Christian and post-Christian background of secular culture by looking at key great texts in great detail. So it's close reading seminars with one-to-one tutorials. And I'll just sort of go through again the following 10 weeks. This is subject to revision, as I've said lots of times. Illustrates the approach that we'll take throughout the 26-week course. So in week one, we're going to be looking at probably one of the most important books in the whole of the Bible, which is Paul's letter to the Galatians. And it's been seen as a great kind of epistle of liberty. And it really defines the West's relationship between the society at large and religious law, and the place of religious law. And we're not going to go into that now, but it's a really, really similar. It's not that long, but it really repays close reading.
Is that justification by faith alone? And
yeah, exactly. Justification by faith alone, and the idea that the divine law has been abrogated or is no longer operating. So we live by the Spirit rather than the law. This is contrary, according to most biblical scholars, to the teaching of Jesus himself. But nevertheless, this epistle of liberty has been hugely influential on the Western psyche. In our modern world, it's secularized. We no longer believe in religious law at all, but we still have the idea of liberty. The individual before God is absolutely key to our consciousness as Western people. Looking at another key text, which is not well known, but it's an excellent work by Dr. Shabir Akhtar, the Oxford philosopher, sadly passed away a year or so ago. The New Testament in Muslim Eyes. There's actually a commentary on Galatians. It's almost unique, possibly unique in the modern world, a top-level exegesis or commentary on Paul's letter to the Galatians by a Muslim scholar, and it's hugely beneficial to read parts of that as well. Just moving forward fairly quickly, we're going to be looking at Augustine, his Confessions. Confessions are absolutely key texts in the ancient world. It's still read very widely today, hugely influential. It's many think of it as the first modern autobiography, even though he was actually a Roman citizen in the 5th century. He's aware of the role of the subconscious on human motivation, and speaks very profoundly in a kind of Platonic and a Pauline way about the nature of the soul. Beautiful. Worth reading. The City of God, De Civitatis Dei, is one of the key texts of the medieval period. We're talking about the relationship between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the world. So it is very influential on medieval political theory and still has a profound resonance today. Fast forwarding to Spinoza, looking at his seminal work on the Bible as a human text, hugely influential in modern biblical scholarship, acknowledged as such by biblical scholars. Going to look at some of his work and the implications for a secular understanding of the Bible and the Quran in the Western Academy. It's important to understand the secularization of Europe. Spinoza in Holland pioneered that. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, Scottish historian. We're going to be looking at some of his hugely influential work, Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion and on Miracles, and comparing this, always looking at this from an Islamic point of view without straw manning. We're going to steel man these people, meaning we're going to faithfully and truly represent what they say from their own work to understand it on its own terms, but also understanding the Islamic response, our own Islamic epistemologies, our own paradigm, which of course is rooted in revelation. David Hume was, if he wasn't an atheist, he was functionally atheist, I think. But anyway, and then one of the greatest, if not the greatest, of modern philosophers, Immanuel Kant, Religion Within the Bounds of Reason Alone. Absolutely key text to really understand how we as modern people, not as Muslims, as Westerners, understand the limitations of religion. We it must be articulated within certain Western secular boundaries or epistemologies for it to have any utility in our modern society. Luther, why Martin Luther? Well, without going into it all now, but his work, on the bondage of the will and his 95 Theses, absolutely fundamental for forming the understanding of the modern individual. We stand before God alone. We don't go through the church or sacraments or priests. So this very much idea of autonomy of the individual, along with Kant, finds its genesis in these two thinkers. In fact,
what a radical was that Luther.
In fact, Luther comes before Kant, so that chronology is not quite right. And then this very important book by Brad Gregory, who's a contemporary historian in the States, The Unintended Reformation. That's a very important text, which Hasan introduced me to a while ago. Very grateful for that. And then other readings, Alistair MacIntyre, who sadly died recently, a Scottish/American philosopher, whose seminal work, After Virtue, absolutely key text, much there of interest, I think, for Muslims. Charles Taylor, another brilliant modern thinker, and so on. So let's give you a flavor. We're looking at key texts and a few other texts which are not as well known, like Brad Gregory or Shabir Akhtar's, which give us a really important intellectual insight, a window into the significance and evaluating these absolutely seminal texts. So it's a very much a textual course based on reading, close reading, discussion, seminar. Now, the level 1 course, we do on the level 1 course, we do touch on some of these works. So I do touch, for example, on Galatians. I do mention Shabir Akhtar, but they're quite brief and selective forays into these works. In the level 2 course, we're going much deeper, looking at the whole of the texts, the whole of, rather than just sort of passing glances, so to speak, at these great people like Augustine, and introducing new works that I mentioned, Spinoza, for example, we've never covered before, or Alistair MacIntyre on the level 1 course. So yes, there is some overlap with the level 1 course, but this is a much more textual, deeper reading than we've done hitherto for.
The treatment's completely different, and the format's completely different. Absolutely.
So just scrolling up again. So can that be seen? Yes, it can be seen. So the BTA's Advanced Diploma Level 2, looking at the ticker tape at the top there, don't miss this one, 30% fee reduction for full payment of Level 2 fees by the 15th of December, just under 2 weeks. And then after that, I think it's reduced to, I think it's 20%, isn't it? After that.
Yeah.
Does it say that? No, it doesn't. But anyway, there's a further reduction, lesser reduction to 20% after that. So Hasan, did you want to share?
That would be lovely. Yeah.
Okay, let me just ping that up.
Just clean my glasses. Okay. Socrates, but it is impossible that evil should be done away with, Theodorus, for there must always be something opposed to the good, and they cannot have their place among the divine, but must inevitably hover about mortal nature and this earth. So the divine can't have anything which is opposed to the good, right? But as reality gets further away from the good, you have this something emerging that is opposed to the good that we call evil. And so it hovers necessarily around mortal nature and this earth. Therefore, we ought to try to escape from earth to the dwelling of the divine as quickly as we can. And to escape is to become an image of God, so far as this is possible. What does it mean to escape? And to escape from that evil, which is a consequence of this distancing from God, it is what's called in the Greek tradition catharsis, or self-purification, which is the identification of the soul with the higher realms and ultimately what one might call the divine realm. And how can that be possible? It's because there's a spark within us, there's a part of our being which is from that realm, which is the spirit. And so that although we are embodied, and our embodiment comes with this these anxieties and these attachments and this ego and so on, by identifying through a process of self-purification with that higher realm, that there is an intrinsic affinity with that part of our being, with that realm. And so we do actually literally ascend, even though we're still, down here in the sublunary realm, but there's an actual spiritual ascent which is taking place. And to become an image of God is to become righteous and holy and wise. Now, of course, this language of an image of God is not unlike what one finds in the biblical tradition, that Adam was created in the image of God. And of course, even in the Islamic tradition, خَلَقَ اللَّهُ آدَمَ عَلَى سُورَةِ الرَّحْمَنِ. Allah Ta'ala created Adam in the image of the All-Merciful, which is another wording which avoids some of the ambiguity in the wording that more clearly mirrors the biblical text. And so to become an image of God is to become righteous and holy and wise. But indeed, my good friend, it is not at all easy to persuade people that the reason generally advanced for the pursuit of virtue and the avoidance of vice, namely in order that a man may not seem bad and may seem good, is not the reason why the one should be practiced and the other not. And so why am I bringing up this text? Well, it's a way to show not only the intrinsic interest from an academic or a scholarly perspective of studying, the works of Plato. He's such a canonical thinker and so important to the Western tradition and the Islamic tradition. So obviously you want to study him. But it's to show that the extraordinary contemporary relevance for us as Muslims and for human beings more broadly, that we have lost this conception of an objective realist ethics in the sense that our ethical judgments, our claims about the nature of the good, you hear this all the time, well, it's all relative, really. There's no real good or evil. It's just the framework that you choose to adopt. It's just custom. It's just society, right? And that kind of rather degraded view of the world was well known to Plato. We tend to think of these deteriorations of human experience and human intellectual life and so on as really thoroughly modern developments. But this was very, very well known to Plato in terms of the sophists and to the ancient world in terms of kind of Epicureanism and this, the identification of the good with pleasure. There is no real good. It's just whatever you happen to be inclined to. The ideas of reality being constructed socially. There's no real good. It's just what the neighbors think and so on. So, namely, in order that a man may not seem bad and may seem good. So this is what Plato was arguing against. What seems bad, doing what seems to be good because everyone else says, yeah, that's good, has nothing to do with whether it's really good or not. That is culture contingent upon culture, right? But a realist ethics where your claims about the good and the nature of the good and what is good and evil are objective truth claims, that calls for a completely different view of reality and a completely different science. And the modern world is up in arms against this, if one can speak about it so broadly in terms of the broad philosophy of modernity, because it doesn't believe an objectivist, realist science of ethics is possible. Why? Because of its kind of default positivism and scientism and empiricism. It's not the reason why the one should be practiced and the other not. That, I think, is merely old wives' chatter. The saying is, let us give the true reason. God is in no wise and in no manner unrighteous, but utterly and perfectly righteous. And there is nothing so like him as that one of us who in turn becomes most nearly perfect in righteousness. It is herein that the true cleverness of a man is found, and also his worthlessness and cowardice. For the knowledge of this is wisdom or true virtue, and ignorance of it is folly or manifest wickedness. And all the other kinds of seeming cleverness and wisdom are paltry when they appear in public affairs and vulgar in the arts. Therefore, by far the best thing for the unrighteous man, and the man whose words or deeds are impious, is not to grant that he is clever through knavery, for such men glory in that reproach, and think it means that they are not triflers, useless burdens upon the earth, right? So, my real criteria are not the good, but I'm so very, very clever and Machiavellian. I'll do this thing, even though it's completely insincere, just to catch this person out. And, I'll be so clever because there's no real morality, but I just need to get what I want. But such as men should be who are to live safely in a state. So we must tell them the truth, that just because they do not think they are such as they are, they are so all the more truly. For they do not know the penalty of unrighteousness, which is the thing they most ought to know. For it is not what they think it is, scourgings and death. Oh, I'm not afraid of Allah or going against the order of existence in terms of intrinsic goodness and truth, but I am worried about the police turning up or going to prison or whatever. And so, I'll have to behave as society tells me to, or at least not get caught, For it is not what they think it is, scourgings and death, which they sometimes escape entirely when they have done wrong, but a penalty which is impossible to escape. What penalty do you mean? Two patterns, my friend, are set up in this world, the divine, which is most blessed, and the godless, which is most wretched. But these men do not see that this is the case, and their silliness and extreme foolishness blind them to the fact that through their unrighteous acts, they are made like the one and unlike the other, right? When you behave as if there's no objective morality, you identify with a degree of being which is maximally distant from God. So you're in a really bad place, and you're going to be susceptible to all sorts of negative spiritual influences, and terrible things can happen. So this is a very, very different view of the world to a traditional metaphysical view. They therefore pay the penalty because of their wretched state. For this, by living a life that conforms to the pattern they resemble. I mean, if we tell them that, unless they depart from their cleverness, the blessed place that is pure of all things evil will not receive them after death. And here on earth, they will always live the life like themselves, evil men associating with evil. When they hear this, they will be so confident in their unscrupulous cleverness that they will think our words the talk of fools, because they don't know anything about metaphysics. I think that will do for now, Paul, but it was just a little sample of reading a book.
Absolutely. I think that gives an excellent example of the process. There's close reading of the text, commentary from an Islamic perspective. I think maybe we ought to look at some of the questions and even some of the comments that have been posted in the last half an hour. So I've already put this up, but one of our... Yeah, this is lovely to see that comment. Thank you very much for putting that up again. Another question, I think, for you, Hasan. Any plans to incorporate excursions into the works of, and then we have that list of...
Oh, but of course, Sheikh Akbar, by which he means Ibn al-Arabi or Ibn Arabi, and his son-in-law, Sadruddin al-Qunawi, and Dawud al-Qaisri, the head of the first Ottoman Madrasa, and Mullah Fanari, the first Ottoman Sheikh al-Islam, and Tashkar Rezada, the great Ottoman biographer. Absolutely, and these are some of my favorite thinkers, and they will certainly be included.
Well, that's an excellent answer to that question. Just scroll up here. This is an interesting comment. I don't know whether Hasan's sections will be antithesis of what we learned from the Ibn Taymiyyah course.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yes. What can we say?
Not so much. Ibn Arabi, by many accounts, there's very serious scholarly work on this. Was a huge inspiration to Ibn Taymiyyah. I know that people might resist that conclusion, but there's a lot of evidence for it. Ibn Taymiyyah did actually read the Futuhat al-Makkiyah with great understanding, because he knew his stuff, and whether he read the whole thing or not, I don't know. I mean, it is about 15,000 pages long. Don't ask me how he wrote it. I really don't understand how these scholars of the past wrote their books. It's just
they didn't have social media accounts. They didn't
have social media accounts, exactly. I mean, I struggle it's so difficult for me to write a 150-page book, and that's a 15,000-page book, and he wrote about 200 other books. I mean, it's just completely absurd. It's the same with Fakhr. It's the same with Ibn Taymiyyah. Yeah, I mean, it's not as it's really not as clear cut. There's Ibn Arabi can be very Salafi. He can sound just like a Salafi. You'd never think that, but that's because you've never read him. Maybe don't mean you, whoever you are. You're Arsalan. Sorry, you're one of our students. Do forgive me. But I still don't know you because I'm not on that course. But point is, Ibn Arabi can sound a lot like Ibn Taymiyyah, really, really. Yeah, and the whole nominalism versus realism, I think you mean, debate again is much, much more nuanced and difficult than one might think. But that's exactly the point of this close reading course, is that we really get into, we don't generalize about things, we really get into the details, inshallah. You'll enjoy that.
Excellent. This is a good question. I am a soon-to-be doctor and mother of 3. What is your vision for the type of student you are looking for? What is your vision for post-BTA trajectory. And you've already touched on this, I think, in some of the comments you made at the beginning, Hasan.
We welcome everyone. We try not to be superficial and prejudiced, if at all possible. We have people who are, it's adult education. People who come into our course are adults. They're motivated. It's quite advanced level stuff. And I would say that possibly, a lot of the people on the course are. We have people in their 20s, people in their 30s, people in their 40s, people in their 50s. We've had people in their 60s. And people from all sorts of different backgrounds. So it's really not very relevant to us.
We do have professionals who have mothers who have children on the course, level 1, I mean, in the States, for example, without getting particular. So it's certainly doable with a bit of judicious arrangement, but so hopefully that helps. I think I can't think any more. Oh, there's one general question, which is not really about the course. It was about Rumi, actually. God, I've lost it now.
Rumi, gosh.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, I had it on the tip of my thumb here. It's just disappeared. It's not really relevant. Okay, when I find it, I'll put it up just for the fun of it, I guess. But we'll just go back to the course itself one last time, perhaps. So don't miss this one: a 30% fee reduction for full payment of level 2 fees by the 15th of December. There is room for some the limited number of scholars available. Everyone will interview everyone, of course. So if you are very keen and committed and are unable to afford the fees for whatever reason, then please do still apply. We take every individual on their merits.
Absolutely.
So that's not a bar to application at all.
No.
And look at the website if you want more details about what the course is about, our philosophy, how we envisage it, and there's a sample syllabus there of 10 weeks for each complementary course, Hasan and mine. These are subject to change, but just give you a flavor of what you might be expected to study in due course, inshallah. So let's just see if any more. Yes, there are a couple of questions here. Oh yes, someone kindly put up the Rumi question again because I couldn't find it. This is really for you, Hasan, because I don't really know enough about Rumi to comment. I've read that he believed in universal salvation and the finitude of hell, a view attributed to Ibn Taymiyyah, apparently. I know there's some issues about his views about the finitude of hell, but is there a convergence there, as far as you're aware, Hasan?
It's absolutely false that Rumi, radiallahu anhu, believed in universal salvation. If you mean by that perennialism, the universal validity of all present-day religions, that's entirely false, not true in any way, shape, or form. It's also attributed to Ibn Arabi. And the question of Ibn Taymiyyah's views on hell coming to an end, it's quite a nuanced one. He does base it on various Quranic verses. There is, an argument to be made for at least having the discussion, and that is also attributed to Ibn Arabi, interestingly enough, in a somewhat different way. But there's a lot of nuance there. It's not something that we can really get into properly and do it any justice right now. But yes, there is the existence of that masala. I've never heard that ascribed to Maulana Rumi, though. But I can confirm that there's no Muslim has ever believed in perennialism.
Good point. a section critiquing Mulla Sadra would be nice. I'm not sure how practical that is. Again, that's very much for your course, I think.
Yeah, there will be treatment of Mulla Sadra and readings from Mulla Sadra. Again, we try not to be polemical. So, if one's rationale for critiquing him is just the fact that he happens to be Shia, that's not really how we operate, but we'll just look at his text on its own merits. And yeah, there will be things to critique, absolutely. The main criticism I have Mulla Sadra is that he's a big copycat from the Sunni tradition.
Well, indeed. What's the difference between short reflections and integrated essays? Will the former be marked?
A short reflection is something that we might set at the end of a class and say, we would like to have a 500-word reflection piece. It's not obligatory and it's not going to be graded, but we will have a look at it and possibly discuss one or two of them in class. Whereas the actual essays are graded and you have to book a tutorial to go through where we'll go through your essay with a fine-tooth comb to try to improve your essay writing. So that's the difference. Okay. And the form will not be marked. No.
Is level 1 and level 2 integrated or separate? These are quite separate courses. So that's what was.
You can study. You can take level 2 if you never took level 1. If you have a BA in philosophy or theology, or you have a really substantial philosophy or theology traditional background, or from self-study, you're just so amazing that you wow us in the interview and we let you in anyway, because we're not the type of people who are very rigid about labels and kind of exclude even the possibility of something just because you don't have the right title or label. But ideally you would have done level 1 first, and a lot of people from level. I shouldn't say that because no, applications are open from people who haven't done level 1, of course. But I'm just saying that we've had a lot of people from level 1 already sign up to do level 2, and that does basically qualify you to do level 2, unless you failed level 1 really, really badly.
Which no one has.
Which no one has, actually, yeah, because of our amazing teaching. No, I'm just kidding.
Amazing students. What's the expected volume of reading per week? That's a good question.
People always ask questions like that. I don't find these questions very meaningful. Do forgive me. I don't mean to, but it's just that it's really the quality of your reading that matters. It's not the volume. We don't say, go and read 100 pages of this. I mean, my sister went to Cambridge to do, what did she do? It was ages ago, Arabic and Islamic studies or something. And at Cambridge, they do that. They basically say, go and read 5 books this weekend. And, no, they really do it. And you have to go and read 5 books that weekend. And then you're going to be grilled on them. Now, we don't do that. I guess because we're just not nasty like people at Cambridge are. But essentially, no, we don't put great stock on that kind of thing. There will be readings, but they'll vary greatly from week to week, the length.
Yeah. Okay, we might draw it to a close now. Does anyone have any more pressing questions that are relevant to the course? We were happy to entertain them. Type them away on the right-hand side there. But do have a look at the webpage, Blogging Theology Academy.com.
Yeah.
BTA's Advanced Diploma Level 2, the world's first great books course specifically designed for the needs of contemporary Muslims. It truly is a world first. Do apply, even if you are financially not in a position to contribute, even with the 30% discount, which there's at the moment. Yeah. We will interview everyone on their merits, as Hasan was saying, and we'll see what happens, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, there is one more question. Can we still apply for level 1? Are you guys teaching? Yes, absolutely. I did mention that at the beginning. We are. There's an application for level 1, and let me just prove that to you. If you scroll down here, here we go. Can we see that? Yes, you can. Applications are now open for BTA's 2026-27 Advanced Diploma in the Western Tradition and Islamic Philosophy and Theology. This is the level 1 course. There's a fee reduction as well, 20% fee reduction if we receive payment by the 31st of December. So yes, this is still very much, this will be our 3rd year that we have run this course. It's been hugely successful, alhamdulillah. And if you go on the website, you can see various, well, it mentions in great detail about the 2 courses. And at the bottom there, no, it's not there. Anyway, in one of the pages, you can see reviews, testimony by current and previous students on this course, which is good. So, yep, do have a level 1.
More, Paul, you'll see that.
Sorry?
You'll see the testimony if you scroll down a bit more. I don't know if you wanted to, but...
Oh, sorry, yes. Let me have a go. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, right. Yes, so you can see for some reason a lot of our students are doing doctorates at Harvard. We haven't quite worked out why yet, but a lot of them are. So Zakir Hussain Gul gave his assessment, his testimony, and 2 other people as well, what BTA Academy students are saying about the course. This is the level 1 course, of course, because we haven't started the level 2 course.
Yeah.
So have a look at that. So I think we might draw it to a close there. We have been live streaming for nearly an hour. Let's quickly look. Yeah, Brother Paul, I think it'd be a great idea to make the philosophical works and knowledge of Dr. Spiker more accessible on YouTube channel. Well, more accessible. There are already a number of podcasts that here Hasan and I have done together, including commenting on such things as atheism and trans. So I'm not sure Hasan is great on bite-sized videos, on TikTok type videos, but certainly you can see his content on my channel as well. Okay, well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much. Do you have any final words, Hasan, or shall we leave it there?
Final words, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Thank you, Paul.
Beautiful. Fantastic. So do have a look at the website. I'll put a link to it in the description below. And inshallah, we will see you at the interview selection process, inshallah.
Inshallah. Take care.
Thank you very much, everyone. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam rahmatullah.